I think I've been surprised to see that some people have brain age gaps up to like 18, 19, or 20 years. One of the things that I work with is called brain age gap and brain age prediction. Brain age gap is basically the difference between the actual age, your chronological age, and the estimated brain age given by that machine that I mentioned. So what people will have if they are smokers is an estimated brain age that is older than what they actually are chronologically, which means this machine, it can see your brain and it can see it's been affected by smoking to a degree that makes it look older.
Are there other things that seem to age our brains?
It's very difficult to pin it down to just smoking. So in the last the last thing I worked on, I looked at smoking, blood pressure. I looked at C-reactive protein, which is basically an inflammatory marker in the blood, and all these things were associated with higher brain age.
How much older are we talking? Like months? Years?
It's to a significant extent.
What's the biggest gap you've seen?
I think I've been surprised to see that some people have brain age gaps up to like 18, 19, or 20 years.
What's the impact of aging our brains like that?
One of the most obvious ways to kind of validate this is that there's also been research on individuals with mental illness. And one of the biggest groups, of course, for people that have older appearing brains is people that have Alzheimer's, dementia, and even schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. With these mental illnesses, we see that actually the brain characteristically it looks older, and these individuals have older appearing brains. The whole point of doing this research is because many of these diseases like stroke, Alzheimer's, dementia, they're age related, right? And the idea is that if we can find, or from my idea at least for the stuff that I'm working on, is if we can find that these cardiovascular risk factors, these lifestyle factors, influence our brain, even if it's a small extent, they influence the age trajectory of our brain in the direction it's going, and we can do something about it, then that's positive, So my role in this brain age prediction research is really to say that some of these cardiovascular risk factors, some of these lifestyle things, they are things that are modifiable. So, there's a lot of addiction involved. There's a lot of inequality, of course. There's socioeconomic issues involved. But, if I use the word choice loosely, these are things that we have a choice of controlling. I can quit smoking. I can quit over drinking. I'm not going to quit drinking completely. You can start physical exercise. That's one of the things that has a positive effect on brain age gap and the brain, physical exercise. So there are things we can take into account that, evidence seems to show that will lead to a younger looking and healthier brain. And in that, it means that we are also making ourselves less susceptible to age-related diseases and even just normal cognitive decline, which keeps our brain a bit healthier and our lifespan a bit longer.
You mentioned smoking. What are some other things that seem to age our brains?
Fatty foods for sure, and sugar for sure will impact the brain. High glucose, for example, this is something we can measure in the blood as well, glucose levels, then it's going to impact the brain negatively. And that's why it's, and that's actually what I'm working on now, obesity and the impact of obesity on the brain. Liver fat was one of the things that was associated with brain age gap, because I looked at that again. So it would appear that having a lot of fat around the liver is associated with having an older appearing brain. And there was another thing called muscle fat infiltration and weight to muscle ratio, which are basically just calculations of the amount of fat versus muscle you have around your thighs. Always recommended to eat healthy. It's not just because of obesity and weight gain that influences other organs in the body, but it's also because it's bad for the brain.